So we come to the first of the lightweight division, boxing history. So the lightweight division had a long, colourful history, and the rules and the scandals that surrounded the lightweight division, the outcome of an international match between Jack McAuliffe and an English champion called Jem Carney in 1987 was so great that it was 9 years before the first glove championship could be staged between American champion George Levine and British counterpart Dick Berg. The weight limit then was 133 pounds in America and 134 in Britain, although Freddie Welsh had it increased to 135 in 1912, and Willie Ritchie, who was also claiming the title at the time, was raised the American limit by a pound. A year later, Ritchie again increased the limit to bring it into line with the British mark, at which it has remained ever since. Racism was rampant in division's early years, to the extent that because the black Joe Gans, in my opinion, the greatest lightweight ever, but again, you know, you've got many others, Duran, etc., and Benny Leonard, I digress. Joe Gans dominated the weight so thoroughly, his individuals set up a white lightweight championship. Gans was the first major figure the category produced, and its successors were Benny Leonard, etc. So we're going to start from there. So June the 1st, 1896, George Kid Levine from the US wins by KO in the 17th round against Dick Berg from England, in London, England. Then February the 8th, 1897, George Kid Levine wins on points over 25 rounds against Kid McPartland from the US. Then August the 30th, 1897, George Kid Levine wins in the 11th round by referee stopping the fight against Eddie Connolly. Eddie Luck Connolly from Canada in New York. Then September the 28th, 1898, George Kid Levine draws over 25 rounds with Frankie Hearn from the US in Coney Island. So you've got July the 3rd, 1899, Frankie Hearn wins over 20 rounds on points against George Kid Levine in Buffalo, New York. December the 4th, 1899, Frankie Hearn draws over 25 rounds with Jack O'Brien in Coney Island, New York. So, we can have a little bit of a readjustment there. So from here, then you've got December the 4th, 1899. December the 4th, 1899. December the 4th, 1899. Frankie Hearn draws with Jack O'Brien from the US. 25 rounds in Coney Island. Then you've got March 23rd, 1900, Frankie Hearn wins over 12 rounds by retirement against Joe Gans from the US in New York. Then you got 12 rounds retirement. He beats Joe Gans on, and then May the 12th, 1902, Joe Gans wins by KO in the first round against Frankie Hearn. In Fort Erie, Canada, September the 17th, 1902, Joe Gans wins in the fifth round by KO against Gus Gardner from the US in Baltimore. Then October the 31st, 1904, Joe Gans wins by disqualification in the fifth round against Jimmy Britt, who would have many battles later at welterweight with Ted Kid Lewis in San Francisco. September the 3rd, 1906, Joe Gans wins by disqualification against Battling Nelson from Denmark. Disqualification in the 42nd round in Goldfield. January the 1st, 1907, Joe Gans wins by KO in the 8th round against Kid Herman from the US in Tonopah. September the 27th, 1907, Joe Gans wins on points over 20 rounds against George Memzik from the US in Los Angeles. Then May the 14th, 1908, Joe Gans wins in the 11th round by a referee stopping the fight. 11th round against Rudy Unholtz from US, and that was in San Francisco. And then here's the suspected thrown fight. I think it was thrown, I'm sure it was. July the 4th, 1908, Battling Nelson wins by KO against Joe Gans. It was one of them because he had a couple of fights, so I'm not too sure which one it was, but one of these was definitely a thrown fight. Battling Nelson, and that was the 17th round KO for Battling Nelson against Joe Gans in San Francisco. Then you got September the 9th, 1908, Battling Nelson wins by KO in the 21st round this time against Joe Gans in San Francisco. Then you got May the 29th, 1909, Battling Nelson wins in a bloody affair by KO in the 23rd round against Dick Hyland from the US in San Francisco. And then you've got February 22nd, 1910, Ad Wolgast from the US wins in the 40th round, referee stopping the fight against Battling Nelson at Port Richmond. Then you've got now March the 17th, 1911, Ad Wolgast. February 22nd, 1910, Ad Wolgast wins in the 40th round against Battling Nelson in Port Richmond. Gone through that one. So we're going to go March the 17th, 1911, Ad Wolgast wins in the 9th round against George Memzik. 9th round referee stops the fight in Los Angeles. Then March the 31st, Ad Wolgast wins March the 31st, 1911, Ad Wolgast wins by retirement in the 5th round against Antonio Legrave from the US in San Francisco. Then May the 27th, 1911, Ad Wolgast wins in the 16th round by retirement against Frankie Burns from the US in San Francisco. Then July the 4th, 1911, Ad Wolgast wins 13 rounds by KO against the Birmingham's own Owen Moran from England, one of Mike Tyson's favourites. San Francisco. Then you've got July the 4th, 1912, Ad Wolgast wins by KO in the 13th round against Joe Rivers from Mexico in Los Angeles. Now, November the 28th, 1912, Willie Ritchie from the US wins by disqualification in the 16th round against Ad Wolgast in Los Angeles. Then you've got November the 28th, 1912, Willie Ritchie wins by disqualification against Ad Wolgast in Daly City. 16th round disqualification. Then July the 4th, 1913, Willie Ritchie wins by KO in 11th round against Joe Rivers in San Francisco. Then April the 17th, 1914, Willie Ritchie wins on points over 20 rounds against Tommy Murphy from the US in San Francisco. Then July the 7th, 1914, Freddie Welsh from Wales wins on points over 20 rounds against Willie Ritchie in London, England. September the 4th, 1916, Freddie Welsh wins on points over 20 rounds against Charlie White from the US in Colorado Springs, Colorado. May the 28th, 1917, Benny Leonard from the US wins in the 9th round, referee stopping the fight against Freddie Welsh in New York. And Leonard was recognised as a champion even though Welsh was overweight, and the fight, like most of Leonard's subsequent contests, was a no decision affair. She used to have a lot of that going on. So November the 26th, 1920, Benny Leonard wins in the 14th round against Joe Welling. Referee stopping the fight in the 14th round. Joe Welling from the US in New York. And that was now October the 14th, 1921. Benny Leonard wins in the 6th round, referee stopping the fight against Richie Mitchell from the US. That was in New York. Then February the 10th, 1922, Benny Leonard wins on points over 15 rounds against Rocky Kansas from the US. That was in New York for the vacant title. December the 7th, 1925, Rocky Kansas. So I'll jump forward there. January 1925, Leonard relinquishes the title. So we got July the 3rd, 1925, Jimmy Goodrich wins in 12th round, referee stopping the fight against Stanislas Lauza from Czechoslovakia, and that was in Long Island, New York, for the vacant title. Then you've got December the 7th, 1925, Rocky Kansas wins against Jimmy Goodrich. Rocky Kansas wins against Jimmy Goodrich. over 15 rounds, points decision in Buffalo, New York. December 3rd, 1926. Sammy Mandel from the US wins on points over 10 rounds against Rocky, Kansas, the Jewish fighter Sammy Mandel, and that's in Chicago, Illinois. Then we got May the 21st, 1928. Sammy Mandel wins over 15 rounds on points against Jimmy McLarnin from Ireland. That's in New York. May the 21st, 1928. Which I've just gone through. That's Sammy Mandel beating McLarnin. Then you've got August the 2nd, 1929. Sammy Mandel beats Tony Canzoneri over 10 rounds on points. Canzoneri, Italian-born US fighter, in Chicago, Illinois. July the 17th, 1930, Al Singer wins by KO against Sammy Mandel in the first round in New York. Then November the 14th, 1930, Tony Canzoneri wins by a first round KO against Al Singer in New York. And Al Singer holds a familiar thing with Sonny Liston, because they both won and lost titles in the first round. And only two, I think, known, unless there's a few more later on, but it was at one time, there are the only two known to have that familiarity between them both. Them two, quite unique. Statistic there, so I digress. April the 24th, 1931, Tony Canzoneri wins by KO in the third round against the Whitechapel windmill Jack Kidberg from England. That's in Chicago, Illinois. In November the 20th, 1931, Tony Canzoneri wins on points over 15 rounds against Kid Chocolate from Cuba. That was in New York. Then November the 4th, 1932, Tony Canzoneri wins on points over 15 rounds against Billy Patrol. That was in New York. Then June the 23rd, 1933, Barney Ross wins on points over 10 rounds. The war hero Barney Ross from the Korean War wins on points over 10 rounds on points against Tony Canzoneri. That's in Chicago, Illinois. September the 12th, 1933, Barney Ross wins on points over 15 rounds against Tony Canzoneri. That was in New York. In April 1935, Ross relinquishes the title. So I'm going to adjust there. So we got, yes, May the 10th, 1935, Tony Canzoneri wins on points over 15 rounds against Lou Ambers from the US in New York for the vacant title. Then October the 4th, 1935, Tony Canzoneri wins on points over 15 rounds against Al Roth from the US. 15 rounds points decision over Al Roth in New York. Then September the 3rd, 1936, Lou Ambers wins on points over 15 rounds against Tony Canzoneri in New York. 15 rounds points decision, Lou Ambers against Canzoneri. Then again, same results repeated. May the 7th, 1937, Lou Ambers wins on points over 15 rounds, again against Tony Canzoneri in New York also. So, now, September the 23rd, 1937, Lou Ambers wins on points over 15 rounds against Pedro Montanez from Puerto Rico. 15 rounds points decision, Lou Ambers beats Pedro Montanez in New York. Then August the 17th, 1938, Henry Armstrong of the US wins on points over 15 rounds against Lou Ambers, 15 rounds points decision in New York. Then March 16th, 1939, Henry Armstrong wins by KO against Lou Feldman in the first round. Lou Feldman from the US in St. Louis, Missouri, billed as the welterweight title defence by Armstrong, but both were inside the lightweight limit. August 22nd, 1939, Lou Ambers wins over 15 rounds on points against Henry Armstrong in New York. Then the NBA withdrew recognition from Ambers for this failure to defend against Davey Day. So May the 3rd, 1940, Sammy Angot, the US, wins on points over 15 rounds against Davey Day from the US in Louisville, Kentucky for the vacant NBA title. Then May the 3rd, 1940, Sammy the Clutch Angot, who actually put an end to Willie Pep's unbeaten 62 fight unbeaten record at the time. Sammy the Clutch Angot, nicknamed for his style. Wasn't the most exciting fight, but very, very awkward to fight. I digress. So May the 3rd, 1940, Sammy Angot, the Clutch Angot, the US, wins on points over 15 rounds against Davey Day in Louisville, Kentucky for the vacant NBA title. So May the 10th, 1940, Lou Jenkins, good Jewish fighter there, one of Mike Tyson's old favourites also, from the US, wins in the third round. Referee stops the fight against Lou Ambers in New York. Then November the 22nd, 1940, Lou Jenkins wins. And the second round, referee stops the fight against Pete Lello in the US. In New York, then December the 19th, 1941, Sammy Angot wins on points over 15 rounds against Lou Jenkins in New York for the undisputed title. So, now, May the 15th, 1942, Sammy Angot wins on points over 15 rounds against Ali Stoltz from the US in New York. Angot retired and relinquished the title in November 1942, although he changed his mind in 1943 and was installed as the challenger for the vacant NBA version of the title. Now, going to finish here. The INSAC title, the New York State title. So now, December the 18th, 1942, Bojack wins by KO in the third round by KO against Tibby Larkin from the US in New York. That was for the vacant New York title. Bang! End of the first lightweight boxing history video. Bang.